start the meeting, I want to take the number 9 item under old business.
Mr. President.
One second. I want to move that up to the very front of the agenda. Under new business, I'm sorry. But before we do that, I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of May 6th, 2019 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Scott? No. You'd be kind enough to...
Mr. President, I make a motion that number 9 agenda item be moved up to right now so that
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, number 9 item under new business is to discuss, consider, and possibly vote to approve a resolution declaring Hopkinton a Second Amendment sanctuary town. See attached. Kevin, do you think I should read the whole resolution? Okay. All right. So the resolution should be available for anyone. And I want to start, I guess, with the council. Whoever wants to go first. Scott, how about you?
Okay. I believe in the Bill of Rights. I was probably some major college. In fact, the council president, Michael, you are a science graduate. And the Second Amendment is not a suggestion. It's a part of an integral right guaranteed to all Americans, just like the freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of petition, and all those documents. And speaking of the freedom of petition, I hope that we entertain both sides of this whole debate. Those petitions should be discussed for the council, even though they're not technically official, but we should receive them and talk about the contents of them. And I respectfully ask that be on a future council agenda. Getting back to the Second Amendment sanctuary town, I think it's appalling that state leaders in this state, and we talk about sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants who are here illegally, violating the law, and yet the Second Amendment, which is guaranteed by our United States Constitution, permits and guarantees the right to bear arms. And the courts have decided that people have that right. People don't have the right to be here illegally, but they certainly have a right to have guns. And I think the politics played by the political left, the liberals, the progressives, leave much to be desired on this issue. The fact of the matter is, I support the Second Amendment, and I'm going to make the motion to adopt this, or I'll second it, but I'm certainly going to vote for it. But I think that, to give you a little bit of my history on this topic, a number of years ago, when I was on the council, there was a request to change the word shall to may issue a gun permit for local chief of police. And we deadlocked. It was 2-2 vote. One of the councilors wasn't present, so it wasn't adopted, that idea. But I believe that we have to take a stand for the Bill of Rights. And we have people who seem to be content with giving driver's license to illegal aliens, which they're here illegally. We have state authorities that talk about legalizing marijuana, which is a violation of federal law. We also have a governor, and I understand the governor's going to have a representative, and I'll say it to the governor if I saw her. The bottom line is she was told by the federal government on the UHIP thing it wasn't ready, and she went out and did it herself. We have a degree of arrogance in this state. We have a degree of arrogance against people's rights. And it's about time the town of Hopkinton, which motto is not to be silent nor walk our God. And those of us from Hopkinton particularly should always remember that saying. And I'm going to proudly vote to defend the Second Amendment tonight. Thank you.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I will.
Tilly, yes.
I think it's important to highlight some of the wording in the resolution. It's on the second page of it. Rhode Island handgun sales already require in-state residency, background checks, an 8-day waiting period, and a blue card, which is the DEM's certification. It's a class that you can take for handgun purchases and prohibits all gun purchases. Now Rhode Island gun laws right now already prohibit gun purchases for the following reasons: on behalf of another person, or for any person under indictment or convicted of a felony or any crime for which a judge could imprison said person for more than a year, or for anyone who is a fugitive from justice, or for any unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic, drug, or any controlled substances, regardless of whether it's been legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreational purposes, or for anyone adjudicated as a mental defective or has been committed to a mental institution, or for anyone who's been discharged from the armed forces dishonorably, for anyone who is subject to a court restraining order for persons from harassing, stalking, or threatening their child or an intimate partner or child of such partner, for anyone who's been convicted in any other court of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, or for anyone who has renounced the United States citizenship, or for anyone who is an illegal alien or unlawfully in the United States. In the last three parts where it says, now therefore it be resolved, that the Hopkinton Town Council, I'll start again. Now therefore be it resolved by the Hopkinton Town Council that the town of Hopkinton be and hereby is declared to be a Second Amendment sanctuary town. Be it further resolved that the Hopkinton Town Council affirms its support for the Hopkinton Police Department to exercise sound discretion when enforcing laws impacting the rights of citizens under the Second Amendment. Be it further resolved that the Hopkinton Town Council will not appropriate funds for capital construction of any building space or purchase of storage systems to store weapons seized pursuant to the requirements set forth in any legislation if such bill is enacted by the Rhode Island General Assembly, or for the purpose of enforcing any other law that unconstitutionally infringes upon the rights of people in the town of Hopkinton to keep and bear arms. What I wanted to do was, because I've been hearing a lot of different things from residents, so what I did do is I contacted the governor's office, and they sent me a list of bills that they've been, that is actually gone to the Senate. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 bills. And anyone, of course, can look this up, I'm sure. But I want to talk a little bit about growing up in Hopkinton and how important guns played in our lives. And we had a farm, we had farm animals, we had a considerable amount of acreage, but there were times when something might threaten our animals, our farm animals. And I'll give you an instance. I was the one, when I got a little bit older, that I could take the .22 and shoot the woodchucks. And we didn't have too many, but the reason we shot them was because they, of course, created a hole, and then a cow or a horse in a pasture could break their leg. And now we didn't have too many woodchucks, maybe that's why. But that's just one example of why it's important that people have guns, especially in rural areas. We all know that we've been threatened by a number of animals, and if you see an animal, no matter what the laws are, if you see some animal that's threatening, maybe it's because they have rabies, and your child's outside, what do you think might happen? Well, obviously it's going to be a call to the police department, but somebody may need to take action on their own. And it has happened. When you have, over the years, I think if there's anyone here who's grown up in town or been here long enough, you know there were instances when you knew of a family or knew of even, maybe it was your own relatives or neighbors or someone in the community that there was something going on. People were aware of it. It was a small town. We had, about half the population we do now. And I knew, growing up, that if there was a law on the books that wouldn't allow someone who is threatening or has a mental defect of some sort, it would have been nice if we had laws on the books that could take guns away from someone who does have a mental illness. And that's what the red flag law is about. And that's on the books, and I support that. And the calls that I've gotten, I've heard people who want us to pass this tonight, but do agree that the red flag law was the right thing to do. So in 1994, for defense, I decided that I needed to get some guns in the house, and I bought, I think it was 94, it could have been 93, but I went through DEM and got my permit. Excuse me, I don't need permit to carry. I was allowed to purchase guns, and I was able to get a 9mm semi-automatic and a 20-gauge shotgun. I didn't think I needed the 10. But those are guns that I bought, that I still have, and I intend to keep. And so I think it's important that some of these laws do mean, and I don't mean these necessarily, but when there are laws that are passed, like the red flag law, the police department's going to enforce it. And I wouldn't want our police department to not enforce any laws that they swear an oath. We all swear an oath. And you swear your oath to follow the laws. So this is not an issue of us against the police department. I think it'd be nice if I mean, some people are really opposed to this, some people are all in favor of it. This is a resolution. Obviously, the police department is going to do whatever they are required to do under the law. So I don't have a problem with this resolution as it's written.
Thanks, Sylvia. Thank you, Sylvia. Well,
I'm an Army brat. I was born and raised in the Army, and I've been around military for most of my life. And I believe in hunters' rights and sportsmen's rights, and I believe in the rights to carry guns for all law-abiding citizens. I have no problems with that. When I read this resolution, the two first resolutions I agree with. The third resolution I do not. And I think that this is a document that needs calm consideration. It needs discussion, because no one is taking anything away from anyone at present. There is no pending legislation taking guns away from law-abiding citizens. These pieces of legislation are in committee. They're not out in the open. They're not brought forward. Both the Senate and the House have put them in committee, which is one way of squashing them, because some of them are ridiculous, and I quite agree with many of you on that issue. However, I find that this resolution is totally unenforceable. We cannot instruct, as a town council in a small town in Rhode Island, we can't instruct the police or the military to disobey state or federal laws. A town council cannot pick and choose. I realize the state may pick and choose, but we cannot. There is an all or nothing proposal here. It's everything or nothing, which means there's no discussion. And when there's no discussion, it means everything's on the table. It has no intrinsic value. It can't be enforced. It can't be used. It can't be discussed, because it's everything. We all love it or we all hate it. That's not the way the country works. And as you go across the country, not just in Hopkinton, but all the way to Alaska, California, or Texas, everybody thinks differently. Everybody has guns for different reasons, and they should, and I have no issues with that. But this kind of resolution has no intrinsic value, is totally unenforceable, and it makes it an us versus them, and it's not. It's just not.
Next vote, Sharon.
When I went out and canvassed in both years, I've met people who asked me what was my opinion about gun control. And I said that I think people have the right to own a gun, but I think that we should make some adjustments for what's been happening. And some of these bills that talk about having assault weapons and multiple capacity, that is what you've seen when you had people do these massacres around the country. And I would not be for that. So if, as Barbara said, if the Second Amendment resolution says all or nothing, then I have to say no.
All right. I am in support of the Second Amendment resolution. I firmly believe in that right in the Constitution. I think that the state legislature and the governor continue to want to play around with what they feel is our rights and what is not our rights. And I am not going to, I don't trust them with my money, let alone to handle the safety of our residents. So I just don't. And I have a lot of guns, and I have a concealed carry permit, and I want to be able to carry where it's lawful to carry. And the law-abiding gun owner is not the problem here. It's bad people with guns. And I'm not sure any law is going to prevent that from happening. So I have friends, neighbors, colleagues, supporters of mine over the last 10 years that are avid hunters and sportsmen, and I promised them, as I promised myself, that if anything like this ever came up, that I would certainly support it, and I will. Anyway, that's that.
The council president put this on the agenda, and I know Senator Morgan has contacted her member towns in the 34th Senatorial District about this. The point is that no Bill of Rights is absolute. Like, you cannot shout out fire under the freedom of speech in a crowded theater. And I believe, somebody can correct me, I believe in the 1930s they outlawed machine guns, unless you had, like, I guess, a permit or license to do that. There has been gun control laws per se, but what we're doing is taking a stand for the Second Amendment. And you know, this thing with the state is really a lot of baloney, because if state government can blow up a federal law about marijuana, whether or not you think it should be legalized or not, is not the point. It's still against federal law. They're talking about legalizing that. You have licenses for legal aliens, and they're here legally, and every day they're here, they're violating federal law. So, I mean, we're going to pick and choose. Are we cafeteria style of followers of the Bill of Rights? Say, well, I like this one, but I don't like that one. Well, the Bill of Rights is for everybody, every darn one of them. In the Constitution of the United States, and I expect the governor, you know, her aide is here, I'm sure she'll read about it, start holding the line and respect federal law. And also, when the federal government, like in the UHIP situation, says we're not ready, we don't have a disaster, because she's the fault we had a disaster on UHIP. And she hurt a lot of lower income people, the governor of this state. So she shouldn't be lecturing anybody. She shouldn't be lecturing Hopkinton or any other town. And I hope she gets a clue. Thank you.
Okay, the council has spoken. I got, I guess, a few minutes for anyone that wishes to kind of weigh in on this, this Second Amendment.
Could we hear from the chief too? Oh, come on, we got a great police department.
This is a town council referendum. I'm not going to comment on either side of this. I think that's appropriate.
Thanks, Steve.
Good choice.
Good answer. Anyway, we can do a couple minutes for or against, I guess, if anybody wishes to. Otherwise, yeah, we'll start with my neighbor, Ben LaFazia. That he's really the one that, with Senator Morgan, that got me to get this on the agenda. He was kind enough to be pleasantly persistent in his efforts, and I applaud you for that. Ben, just a few words, please.
Appreciate that, thank you very much.
State your address, too, please.
So my name is Ben LaFazia, I live at 131 Skunk Hill Road, Oak Valley, Rhode Island. And my wife and I, we both fully support this. I brought a few words with me today, but you guys kind of went over all of it. So really, the last thing I just wanted to say was, our town was named after Stephen Hopkins, one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence. Our town seal has 3 firearms in it, and our town slogan is, "Not to be silenced nor off our guard." So this town is built around the Second Amendment. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
My name's John LaBrosse. I live at 630 Main Street, Hopkinton. Pretty well I've lived in Hopkinton for most of my life. As many that know me know my mother was town clerk for many, many years in this town. A couple of quick stories and a couple of things that somebody's pointed out that I want to address. Okay? I bought my first assault rifle, so-called assault rifle, right after 9/11. When I sat at the Hopkinton Creamer House, and I brought a TV into the elderly, and we all watched the towers go down together. And I realized that my kids were at school, and everybody was at work. My cell phone wouldn't work. And I realized that my country couldn't protect me, that it was up to me to protect myself, and to find a way to get to my children so I could protect them. Okay? These guys over here, the Hopkins Police, good guys, they do a great job. But they're not Superman. None of us are. Okay? Barbara mentioned the 30, the capacity. I bet you, Barbara, if you went on YouTube and you watched the LA riots, you would see gentlemen during the riots in LA years ago that were protecting their homes and their stores, etc., with high capacity magazines on their firearms against huge crowds that they probably didn't have enough ammo to protect themselves from. So there are reasons why we would have those things. Scott Bill, you mentioned about fully automatic weapons and military-style weapons. They're not outlawed. Civilians can't own them. They must get a license and a permit. It's unconstitutional to outlaw them. So we find ways around the laws. We make licenses and permits. So guys like the elitists, maybe the new colonel of Rhode Island State Police, maybe he's got a fully automatic weapon. But John LaBrosse and most of the people in here don't. Barbara, you mentioned something about the Third Amendment of the draft. What was it you didn't like about it?
The third resolution on capital construction, mandated capital construction. I have no control over that. I have no control over any of this resolution. The town council has no control. This is unenforceable, which is why I'm saying it's a piece of paper that makes you feel good, but it has no intrinsic value other than making you feel good. And I have no idea what they're going to do. I think it makes more sense to go to the committees and talk about these things that are in a committee, not out in the open, and explain why they don't make sense. And some of them don't make any sense at all. And I'm not saying that you can't have guns or that things don't happen and you need them. I'm just saying this resolution is a feel-good resolution. It has no intrinsic value. It doesn't do anything except make you feel like you've done something. And it hasn't. It's unenforceable. I can't tell my police to not follow state or federal law.
I would disagree with you. Well, what you can do is if we as a society don't want these laws enforced, then we don't employ police officers to enforce that law. And I don't mean that in the wrong way, and I'm not saying that let these guys go. I'm just saying if you do have some say, you control their budgets, okay? So you do have a say in how things are. I understand that, Chief Palmer and them have to enforce the laws. The laws that you're sworn to under your oath of office, and the laws that these guys are the Constitution of the United States of America. That's it, okay? There's plenty of laws that are written on the books that go to the Supreme Court and are found unconstitutional and therefore null and void. So there are things that we can do to circumvent. This is just a step in the right direction. You talk to a guy that has to go up to the State House 5-6 times a year, okay, and go against these ridiculous gun laws. Sylvia, you mentioned red flag bill, okay? I'm going to tell everybody in this room. I was in the State House when the red flag bill came to the floor. I watched my state rep, okay, not Elaine did her job. I watched my state rep get up just before the vote was taken and leave the room and come back after, okay? Why is that? Because he has a high rating with the NRA, that's why. So for him not to vote no, kept his rating up. To be absent for the ballot kept his rating up. It's very deceiving, very deceptive, and really ticked me off. The red flag bill, well, I agree, there are people out there that, I got a brother in my family, I don't believe should own a firearm, okay? But there are plenty of us that aren't those people, we're not the lunatics. The red flag bill takes the due process out of it. A lot of people don't know that red flag is a feel-good bill, just like you just said. It takes due process out. All somebody has to do is call and say, I feel threatened for my life, and convince a judge. There's no trial, there's nothing, okay? The cops are on, you go to your house, confiscate your guns, and you lose them for 6 years. With no trial, no due process. That's where I have a problem with the red flag bill. It's not that, it's a feel-good bill, and it gives the upper echelons power over regular people. You lose your 14th Amendment right, illegal search and seizure, because some judge signed a waiver saying, go take his guns. Let's search and seizure. Okay, so there's a lot more to it than just, it's not that simple. Okay, and as somebody that was abide by the law, okay, I talked about my mother earlier. My mother was 79 years old. I never was allowed to have a firearm in my house my entire life until I turned 18, when Sylvia's brother took me to Reggie Kenyon's over here in Ashland to buy my first .22, and her father taught me how to shoot it. Okay? I wasn't allowed a firearm in my house. At 79 years old, when my mother watched my family shooting firearms, that she finally decided that she was going to give it a try. And my mother sat there at 79 years old. I got pictures I can show you all right now. And she learned all about firearms. First, we took her and taught her how to tear them apart, clean them, okay, how to respect them, and how to shoot them, in which she then joined the shooting league. And for 2 years, shot once a week with my wife and my daughter, shooting. So, and my mother was afraid of them. So a lot of times we're afraid of guns. Well, we're afraid of cars doing 60 miles an hour while we're working on our roads too. Okay? But you don't see people, people in this room don't slow down when they come through a construction site. I don't mean to insult anybody. It's just, people take things for granted. This is our right. Recently I heard on the radio where this lady was getting attacked because she said there shouldn't be any tax on firearms. And the news guy said, well, they're tangibles. And he said, so therefore they should be taxed. Okay, do you know there was a time in this country where all men were required to have a firearm for this country's defense?
Well, of course, and the Second Amendment was written when we had no militia, no police, no army, navy, or anything.
But so was the
expected, the town was expected to pull people together and give them guns and send them off. This is all fine. There is no lack of respect for Hopkinton and the gun owners in this town. You have all been absolutely wonderful. There are no complaints about any of it, nor do I think that you should be. But there is a feel-good, this is feel-good because there's nothing you can do with it. Your red flag law is not a feel-good, it's now a law. This is not a law, and I can't do anything with this piece of paper. I can't make Chief Palmer do one thing or another. I know you're trying to make a statement, then make a statement.
We are.
I know, but it's one of those where civilly we are not always going to agree. You're not going to agree with me on this, that's fine. I don't take your right away from saying I want it anyway. I don't take their votes away from saying I want it.
Barbara, it's not you I'm afraid of. It's up at the State House, okay? That's who I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of you. The governor recently talked about her unbiased panel, okay, to do the research on firearms in schools. She quotes that she had an NRA member that was on that panel. Do you know who that NRA member is? Does anybody ever know him?
Zero.
What's the police? The colonel of Rhode Island State Police was her NRA member and her unbiased person. He's the same guy that stood in front of Elaine and the House of Representatives and tore apart a so-called assault rifle. Okay? After the first time I watched him testify, he retired as a major. Okay? Isn't it funny the governor called him back and promoted him to colonel after that one? Okay? And now he goes on live radio and TV and says he's there at the State House on the abortion thing, representing Governor Raimondo. Well, is that what he's doing with the Second Amendment?
Hey, John.
I have nothing to do
wait,
with this. It's becoming personal. And
Let's agree to disagree, I guess, Barbara and John, but, you know, thank you, John, thank you, John.
Mr. President, I'd like to recognize Elaine Morgan, Representative Justin Price, and Representative Northern Part of Hopkins. As you point, the representative that wore Brian Patrick Kennedy, represented us since the late 1980s, is the one that walked so we could have a good NRA rating. And if you have courage, you don't duck from the vote. Thank you.
Just a few words, Elaine.
It's quick. I want to thank you all for bringing this forth. I brought it forth because I had a lot of calls from residents asking me to actually bring this forth to you, to the 5 towns I represent. So we are not trying to change any laws. We want to just enforce the laws that are on the books. And what I see going on up at the General Assembly is not good. There are bills up there, and we don't know what's going to happen. And our governor, she asks us to lobby. We're up there in full force. We have 200 to 1 advocates for our Second Amendment. And if she doesn't see them, it's a sea of yellow up there. This is what I'm afraid of. And all I want to see is the books followed, the law followed. It's our right, that should not be infringed upon. And I took an oath to protect our Constitution, our amendments, our Bill of Rights, and that's why I'm stepping forward. And thank you very much.
Sorry, I missed you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Dalton. I live at 6 Soaphouse Lane in Hope Valley, Rhode Island. And I'm very interested in the laws being followed as well. And in that vein, the Second Amendment does protect rights for legal gun ownership. But in that vein, I have to support what Barbara Capalbo has said, that this is a resolution, it is not a law, it has no power, and it will only lead to confusion in terms of the residents and in terms of perhaps the enforcement of these laws by our local police, in wondering, what the views of the town are. Are they in opposition to the laws? So I would encourage the town council to vote no.
My name's Thomas Padula, 147 Woodville Alton Road. If you want to talk about feel-good laws, Rhode Island General Law 114760 says that if you are eligible to meet the requirements of Rhode Island General Law, these are laws, 114711, you can carry a handgun on school property, elementary and secondary schools. That's a law. It says you can do that. Gina Raimondo, to make a feel-good law, made her, I don't know, not resolution, but her executive order that you can't, there'll be no guns on the schools. I need to ask the chief. if someone with a concealed carry permit is on school property, will you arrest them?
Well, it all depends on what the law
Yeah.
actually says.
Yeah.
If it says,
She didn't make a law, she can't, I don't know.
Well, let's
You need to
not
tell me
get into the,
if she can make laws.
the weeds
She can
here.
make laws.
Didn't go through
But
this.
no, yeah,
But she decided she would just bypass those Rhode Island general laws and make her own.
I think she had asked the superintendent of education to enforce that and
Yeah.
whatever, so yeah.
And
Well, no,
Bypassing the general
it's-
assembly.
that's a confusing aspect as well, because there is laws and then she
I'm
said.
not saying that anybody's taking guns away or anything, but all you have to do is look at the news every day. Venezuela, the government took them away, and the people are throwing stones, and the government's shooting firearms. And one of the news reporters said, well, usually the side with the firearms wins. So, you know, and another feel-good, this has nothing to do with this resolution. Red LEDs, I guess the chief's gonna have to go arrest Pete's Grocery because they got a lottery sign that's red LEDs. Did we say you can't have red LEDs? Half the cars driving through town have red LEDs. They probably have red LEDs in their car. So let's not talk about feel-good laws. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Donahue from 1 Juniper Drive in Ashway. Just for a quick on me, I'm a combat Vietnam veteran. The government gave me an automatic M16 to go kill, and I did. Now you're trying to take out my gun rights, and Robert, you said that has no value. It does. It's telling the state that the town of Hopkinton is backing this resolution, the laws. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Quick, few words. Yeah.
Thank you. Justin Price, State Representative for the town, the great town of Hopkinton, Richmond, and Exeter. But I agree. This is a resolution. Resolutions are certainly powerful. They demonstrate support from towns, and if the towns throughout the state have similar resolutions, it makes it even more powerful. So statements that have been made that seem to make it so that the resolution wouldn't have any merit at the state level, I think I would disagree with that, and I certainly would approve of supporting this resolution at the town level and throughout the towns throughout the state. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Hi guys, thanks for having us tonight. Glad you all came out and are listening to our points of view, but I want to get to this feel-good notion.
Can you state your name and address?
My name is Sean Ross Jr. This is my father. I won't be as long as him, I promise.
How come you're taller than your dad?
It's because I have a hat on, and
Yeah,
it's
you
actually 6'1", I'm like just on the border. But anyways, I want to get back to this point of this feel-good notion. And I think that's a big reason why we're all here, is because you guys as our council are our first line of representatives going forward from this town. So we want to feel good that you guys have our best intentions, which the Second Amendment, which says shall not be infringed, and many of us are very much support, love. We grew up on it, learned firearm safety as a young kid. We're very smart. I've been all throughout the country. I went to college in Ohio. I was like 2 hours south of Detroit. I had friends from Detroit that lost friends, multiple friends in the time that I knew them. They told me I could not go back to their community, and it was a gun-free zone. I lived in South Carolina, where you can freely carry. For the most part, in your glove compartment, it's easier to get a concealed carry. Those people out there, they need it because there's a lot of crime that happens, and the ordinary person needs to defend themselves because the drug problem in this country is rampant. And I just think that for you guys going forward, you want to make us feel good, represent us with the integrity and back our Constitution, because that's what we're looking for. If you guys would like to continue to be on the county council, that you take heed to our request.
Good evening. Michael James Gary, 16 Tomahawk Park Road, Bradford. Mr. President, members of Town Council, I urge you to pass this resolution. I would much rather have you five make a decision for us than somebody who picks and chooses on what they think is best for me. I feel confident with you five, you will make the best decision. Mr. President, members of the council, town, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, if there's no other words, I think we can accept, entertain. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I missed you. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Tammy King Walsh. I live at 229 Woodville Road in Hopkinton. First I just want to say I am a gun owner. I've been around guns since I've been a little kid. And I absolutely support people's right to own guns. That said, I have to say I agree with Barbara that having a resolution that calls us a sanctuary town means absolutely nothing. And I think that if you want to do anything, pass a resolution that just says we support our Second Amendment rights. That gets the politics out of it. It doesn't pit people on both sides of the issue against each other. We have enough of that going on in this town. And I just think that it's absolutely ridiculous that we're even thinking about this. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Cricket? Yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm not a resident of Hopkinton, I'm a resident of Rhode Island, but you all due respect, ma'am, you talked about resolution feel good. Well, if you know the history of Rhode Island, when the British were opposing gun laws, strict gun laws, forced state religion, taxation without representation, Rhode Island created a resolution saying this is a safe haven from the tyrants. So where did that resolution turn out? To the greatest document known to man is the Constitution of the United States of America. Now you may say this is just a resolution, but this is to send a signal, a message to the tyrant, and I'm using the best words I can for her, the tyrant at the State House. The tyrant at the State House let her know, no matter what law she passes, and this is, I understand we've got to follow the laws, the office is going to follow the laws here, but the law of the land is the Constitution. She could say we want all, she could pass a law tomorrow, say we want all guns no matter what, banned. That's unconstitutional, thus becoming null and void. That's what the Constitution clearly states, and it is delegated to we the people to overthrow such guards if we have to enforce that. So we're asking each town here in the state of Rhode Island, right here in the great city of Hopkinton, especially being named after when the people signed the Declaration of Independence. I mean, that would be a smack in the face to tell him, say, listen, these guys suffered great deaths after they signed it. I don't know if people know what happened to these guys after. They suffered great deaths, lost houses and families and everything else, and they risked everything to have what we have today. And meanwhile, we got a person at the State House, many people at the State House, on the state level, who are seeking to destroy everything. This man, you, everybody here, especially serving in the military, man, thank you for your service, and everybody here stands for. So we need to enforce that. Say, hey, listen, if you push unconstitutional laws, we're not going to abide by them. We're going to abide by the law, the Constitution, not your law, which is tyrannical. You know what I mean? So it's not a feel-good thing. A resolution created the Declaration of Independence. A resolution created the Constitution for the United States of America. So it's not just a feel-good thing, because again, if you look not just around the U.S. history, Resolutions create the greatest document on the history of this planet, the Constitution for the United States of America and the Rhode Island State Constitution. Thank you, and I hope and pray that you guys do the right thing. Not, it's not a political thing, right versus left. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with we the people. That's what it's to do with. And God bless you all. Thank you, and I hope you guys vote for me.
Okay, entertain a motion.
Madam President. Mr. President, I make a motion that the Hopkinton Town Council adopt this resolution on the second amendment.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further council discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
First of all, a resolution is strictly that. It's a resolution. And most resolutions have no force of law. It's not like an ordinance. Unless we adopt a resolution about taxes at, the financial town assembly or at a vote. But the bottom line is it's a statement. And I proudly vote for it. And but the more important thing you recognize is hypocrisy in politics and government. And people seem to be interested in the Constitution when it suits their benefit, and they're not interested in the Constitution when it does not. And I hold the governor and certainly members of the General Assembly, present company excluded, and many of the legislators, that's the problem. We like to pick and choose in the ones that hold office a lot of times, or the political activists. But the Bill of Rights is a fundamental part of our Constitution. And I will also like to point out, for historical clarification, being a historical junkie I am, Rhode Island didn't vote on we didn't have people at the Constitution Convention. Rhode Island, look at the signage, there was none from Rhode Island. We had two from the Declaration of Independence. One was Stephen Hopkins, which this town was named for. And interestingly, the state of Rhode Island only adopted the United States Constitution by 2 votes. It was that close in Rhode Island. Rhode Island was very big on rights and things like that. That's the Rhode Island deal. And I would hope that our governor and some of the people in the General Assembly start realizing that, including some of our municipal officials in some of the other communities who really reflect on that, because we have a lot to learn from the past and what words mean. With that, I'm not going to take any more time. I'm really looking forward to voting for this and making a statement. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion made, seconded, no further council discussion.
I still want to say that I am appalled about the massacres that have happened in our country. And I think that we should do something. And I don't think that banning assault weapons and multiple magazines, I don't think that is too much to ask. And I still agree. Thank you.
All right. So motion made and seconded. Any further council discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Not in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yeah!
Take just a 10-minute recess, just so folks can clear out if they need to. Thank you. Okay, folks, let's continue on here. The second item we'll take up tonight is the second CDBG hearing. Open a second public hearing on the fiscal year 2018 Community Development Block Grant application. Discussion, ranking of requests, and decision or motion to adopt the authorization resolution attached.
I just want to state for the record that I'm going to be abstaining from ranking and voting because of my personal reasons. Thank you.
Jeff and Jim, do you want to...
Sharon, did she leave? Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Landfill. Thank you for your efforts today on the circle.
Oh, no problem. This is the second public hearing for our annual Community Development Block Grant applications. On March the 14th, we had a multi-town meeting at the Richmond Town Hall, which was our first public hearing on the application, where the rules of the program for this year were laid out to applicants, nonprofits, etc. Last week, on May 1st, the planning board reviewed these 3 proposals, and they found that none of them conflicted with the town of Hopkinton comprehensive plan. And so now we're here tonight to have the town council review them, prioritize them, possibly adjust the dollar amounts, whatever. So let me just run through the contents of this. The first activity we have is the Hope Valley Waterline Extension Feasibility Study, and that is for $46,650. Second activity is for Looking Upwards. That's a nonprofit that provides assistance to low-mod folks, disabled folks for housing improvements. They're asking for $5,818 for replacement windows. The third activity is the Tri-County Community Action Program. They're running a job training program where they're going to give vouchers to train licensed practical nurses, get them the education they need to become nurses. And they're asking for $60,000 for that, 20 vouchers to give out. And finally, we have administration of the program, which is done by the Washington County Community Development Corporation. They're asking for $16,971, which is basically 15%, the standard 15% that's asked for of the previous 3 activities. So adding the 4 items up, we have an application package of $129,439. And I would ask you to prioritize them 1 through 3. And that's about it.
Okay.
I have one question. Jim, on the Tri-County Community Action, they're going to be training people for an LPN program, is
Yes.
what you said. Do you know if there will be anyone from Hopkinton in particular?
I don't know for a fact, but there very well could be.
Yeah. So there is a possibility Tri-County would work within the town to find maybe 3 or 4? I mean, there's 20 opportunities. I'm sure they have to go more across the Tri-County, 3 counties, but I do hope that they're going to take people from Hopkinton, because I know that doesn't always happen.
I'm not sure how they're going to publicize the program, but keep in mind that the state has encouraged nonprofits to apply for all of their funds through a singular community, rather than years past where they go for portions of it throughout the county. So Tri-County has chosen Hopkinton to come through.
So perhaps they think that we have applicants?
Well, they serve the entire region. So wherever the applicants come from, that's it. The Warm Center is going through Westerly this year. DDRC is going through Narragansett, Welcome House, South Kingstown. So that's the way the state likes to do it from a management standpoint. Makes it easier for bookkeeping. So, theoretically, Tri-County could take all of 20 people from Hopkinton if that be the case. They're not going to deny anybody. I don't know how actively they're going to promote Hopkinton over the other communities. I'm sure they'll publicize it, and whoever comes in gets in the program.
Jim, Tri-County, what happened to South County?
I believe that is the successor organization to South County Community Action Program.
So
That would probably,
they have to let us know what happened to South County.
It's been years now, maybe even 10 years. South County Community Action had some management issues, and the state asked Tri-Town Community Action. Johnson come down and manage South County and get it straightened out on New Keel. They came and then they left, so a few years back, or maybe, they just decided to merge the two. Tri-County Community Action is still really South County Community Action, just managed a different way. So the service area is down here.
All right.
And this money would be down here.
What do they mean by tri-county? What counties are they talking about? Washington?
It's not 3 counties.
Oh,
It was
it's not.
Tri-Town in Johnston.
Okay.
Johnston, I don't know who they serve, but
So
they're too
so-
far north for me. And South County, so they Tri-County rather than South Town. It's just.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I don't have any problem with the.
Do you guys want to run?
Now, the feasibility study, I think that, I talked to Bill McGarry, I talked to the manager about it. Before the Hope Valley waterline can be extended, there still is one item that was never completed, and this the Community Block Grant Program, the Water Resources Board. I'm trying to think there was another one in there, but the state through them said that before any extension could be done, and we agreed to it back then, that there was this statement of, they want us to know exactly the septic systems, they called it the loading.
Yeah, I talked to Jim about it.
Oh, good,
Yeah, yeah,
and it has to be, so you look at the water line that as it exists now, and this study could do it. We need all the ISDS permits, they used to physically have them, but in the past, when we needed them for the water line, we went to the state and they said, here you go, and you could look it up. But, so, it may be that it can be done online now, but we need to know what the loadings are. What's the septic loading in the area? And the reason they wanted us to know is because then through either zoning or some ordinance, you would limit that area to what exists. So that somebody comes in and say, well, we're going to get rid of this house because maybe it's a neighborhood business or whatever. We're going to get rid of it and we're going to put something else in. And they need a different septic system. No, you can't do that because you're limited to what exists now. And the reason that was done is because the environmental review that was done at the time recommended it. And we agreed to it. So it's that one thing that needs to be done. And maybe this should be part of the study. How does that sound?
You figure that cost in there.
I don't know.
You can't get it online?
It's...
Where there's been an improvement in the recent past, you can get it online.
Yeah, and you'd want it for every single property that's allowed to tie into the water line, those approved properties, and just know what the septic is. And it's something the town should probably have. And maybe to organize it, for every application that we have for the water line, you make sure we got the permit attached to it. And then you'd never have to look it up again. I'm not sure how we restrict it. I throw it to legal and they let us know how to do it. But the first thing is to find out along that strip what the current septic system allows.
Yeah, so the loading, if you could try and work that into the feasibility study with CDBG, that'd be great.
I guess we could try it.
Yeah, see what they say.
Yeah, but again, that's a requirement to extend the water line.
And you're
I look at this as two separate things. Okay, we're going to see the feasibility of it first of all, and have them do their thing with that. Then we can look at that data, and before we go to extend it, we can do exactly what you said. We calculate the existing loading, and that would be one more factor that we would use to determine if we want to extend it or not. But I don't know how much. If we can do it, we'll do it with this feasibility study. We'll ask them. I mean, it should be easy to do, I would think. We have the number of units. We can calculate the number of dwelling units. We already took a survey door to door. We know how many dwelling units are there. So we can come pretty close to it.
All right. Does you guys want to rank these? 1, 2, 3?
I have no problem with the way they're ranked right now, because looking upwards is specifically Hopkinton, so I would like it right under the Hope Valley water line. But I do think the water line extension is important to a lot of the our citizens that need it further down in Hope Valley.
How do you want to rank them, ladies?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll rank them, I guess, with the water line first, looking upwards second, and then Tri-County Community Action third.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. That's what I would suggest and recommend. Now, Deidre Murphy came here from Looking Upwards. I don't know if she wants to explain her program a little bit. I have a little something to say. Would you like to say something today?
If you want.
Sure. Love to hear.
Looking Upwards, I don't know if you're familiar with Looking Upwards, but we have a shared residence in Hopkinton. 3 individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities live there. They are residents of Hopkinton, and we greatly appreciate the town sponsoring our application for these state funds to replace the windows. You know, these individuals deserve dignified and living in a functional living environment.
Absolutely.
I think it's perfectly valid request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim, do we need a motion or?
There is a resolution
Oh, okay, good.
in your agenda. Authorizing resolution.
Oh, yeah, I think it's in here.
Well, I'm going to it's a couple of pages in behind the page now.
Yep, I got it.
You got it?
Whereas, well, we'll move that we,
Don't see it.
it's after, it's right after our agenda, right after the resolution.
Just before Jim's.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Whereas funds are available under the Rhode Island Community Development Block Grant Program administered by the Department of Administration, Division of Planning, Office of Housing and Community Development. And whereas the Governor of the State of Rhode Island has authorized the Director of the Department Office to disperse such funds. And whereas it is in the interest of the citizens of Town of Hopkinton that application be made to undertake a small cities community development block grant program. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Hopkinton that the filing of this application for the amount of
129,439.
129,439. Got it. $129,439 to implement the activities proposed herein. Hereby authorize that Frank T. Landolfi, Town Council President, is hereby authorized and directed to file this application with the Office of Housing and Community Development to provide any additional information or documents required by said office, to make any assurances required in connection with this program, to execute an agreement with the State of Rhode Island to otherwise act as a representative of the Town of Hopkinton on all matters related to this application and any award which may be based upon this application.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion, ladies? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Scott, abstain. Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. Approved town council meeting minutes of April 15, 2019. Approved special town council meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2019. Accept the March 25th, 2019 court transcript and April 22nd, 2019 court transcript as the records of these hearings for the zone amendment and comprehensive plan and future land use map amendment by Atlantic Solar LLC involving Gordon Excavating Inc. and Hopkinton Land 1 LLC. Approve refunds as a result of the taxpayers' overpayment of 2018 real estate and 2018 motor vehicle tax submitted by the tax collector, Lisa.
I wanted to bring your attention that to clarify that the real estate prepaid taxes was for 2011, not 2018.
Okay.
On both?
No, just for the real estate.
Just the real estate.
2011, right?
All right, so moved.
Okay, motion made and
Second.
second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, first public forum.
Time to get off.
Get up and move around. Joe Morone. You know, I've heard a lot about where the town needs additional business to get additional revenue. You know, so I looked at Richmond and their mill, and I know there's other factors besides the mill rate, but I looked at Richmond where their mill rate is $21.36 and it's going up to $22.20. And you look at Hopkinton, as we all know, it's $20.07 going up to $20.87. If you look at, I looked at 3 different towns, Coventry, $21.61, Forster, $22.84, and West Greenwich, $23.70. I drove the other day from the Little League field, which I believe is right at the town border, and I went 1.2 tenths of a mile. And there's 46 businesses. Now granted, there's one building that has 5 or 6 businesses in there, but there's 46 businesses in that little over a mile stretch. I told you before, my wife and I moved from Coventry because of that reason. You go down Tyoke Avenue in Coventry today, and I don't want Hopkinton to become the way Coventry is in Richmond. Richmond has a lot of solar. I don't know what the comparison is to Hopkinton, but I know there's a lot of solar in Richmond, and that really hasn't helped their mill rate that much. I don't believe it's just about more business. I realize that we need to look at other factors, for example, the tax rate. Next 2 points I found to really be disturbing. One, I read an article in the Wesley Sun, and it says right on the top, in Hopkinton, debate over solar projects gets personal. No dispute in recent years has divided Hopkinton residents as deeply as the struggle over commercial solar energy proposals. Then it goes on to say that since the town council denial on January 28th of Brushy Brook, the debate has gotten personal and the targets of attacks have been on both sides. After the vote, Hurst became the subject of a complaint filed with the Hopkinton police regarding his residency. Documents obtained by the Wesley Sun and the Access Public Records included the complaint filed there. The complaint's identity is not known because the documents were extensively redacted by the Hopkinton Town Solicitor, Kevin McAllister. I was glad that Sylvia took a stand on this. Sylvia, this is a quote, Sylvia Thompson said she too had been pressured to approve the Brushy Brook proposal. She expressed disappointment that Hurst had been the subject of such a complaint. I can't agree more. If that's how low we're going to stoop, to file a complaint against a town council member. Both Scott and I felt the pressure to reconsider our vote against the zone change that would have allowed 57 megawatt solar, and it goes on about Brushy Brook. It's disappointing to learn how far someone will go because they disagree with your vote. Did the abutter in favor of the zone change think filing a police report against Councilor Hurst would force him from office? Was it payback or just bullying? Scott did nothing wrong. I want to say that again. Scott did nothing wrong. He was out of his house a while work was being done. Now he's back home. That's just an awful thing to do. And whoever that was, I've got 3 names at the top of my list, but whoever that was, shame on them. The last thing I want to mention that I found really disturbing, and they have a right to a petition. I can't agree with that more. This landowner rights petition. Just a quote. We, the undersigned residents, taxpayers, and voters of the town of Hopkinton support zoning amendments for the purpose of allowing utility-scale solar development in areas of the town, regardless of the current zoning, where they would hide well with the utilization of screening and buffering. I don't know if you've been out to Palmer Circle. It took them 2 days to clear cut that piece of property, and you can see that. The thing that I have a real issue with is, again, we all have our rights. I heard that many times tonight. 2 members of our town council signed that petition. I don't think that's appropriate. I really don't. My opinion, I don't feel that's appropriate. Are we becoming the Wild Wild West again? We're not going to follow our town ordinance? I heard tonight several times that there's laws, there's rules, and I agree with things that we have to follow. It was mentioned about the town council taking an oath to follow those rules and those guidelines. It was also said about picking and choosing. The town council can't pick and choose, and I would not expect them to do that. But I think that's a serious issue where Scott is raked over the coals over something like this, and then some members of our council sign a petition. You're certainly entitled to your opinion, and I agree with that. But as a member of the town council, I would hope if you had to do it over again, you would not vote on any petition. Thank you.
All right, fine. Council President report. I always want to express my appreciation to Ben Lafazia, a neighbor, and Senator Elaine Morgan for their Second Amendment efforts. Again, Ben, a neighbor of mine, was gently nudging me in this direction to bring this resolution forward, and so was Senator Morgan, and I want to thank them both for that. I was going to initially take a wait-and-see attitude to see what Barville was going to do and see how the electorate was going to take it, but I decided not to after talking to them, so I want to thank them personally for that. That's it under my report. Bill McGarry, Town Manager report.
Thank you. Recreation Department grants. During the second week of April, I worked with Recreation Director Mary Sawyer, who applied for an AARP Community Challenge grant in the amount of $6,361 to match the DEA grant we received last month to install a new epoxy floor in Crandall House Activity Center. Councilor Barbara Capalvo forwarded this grant application to the Rec Department, and the new floor was recently installed a couple of weeks ago. Similarly, I worked with Mary, and she applied for a $1,000 Senate legislative grant, which will be used for the purchase of several new picnic tables at the Freeman Field. This application was forwarded to us by Elaine Morgan. Stubbtown Road landfill. During the month of April, I spent a considerable amount of time working with the planner Jim Lamphere and his assistant, Sean Henry, and others on the older and newer sections of the town-owned Stubbtown Road landfill. We've met with Steve Cabral from Crossman Engineering several times, the abutting property owner, DEM officials, Al Diorio, Department of Public Works personnel, and others. Now, this is really a long-term project, and we're still in the infancy stages of this project. Working with Jim Lamphere, Crossman Engineering has prepared a field review memorandum on work that needs to be completed at the newer landfill, which is phase 2. And they are also preparing for us a proposal to formulate what they call a remedial action work plan for the older landfill that's required by Rhode Island DEM. Also on April 26th, Jim, Sean Henry, and I met with Chris Kearns from the Department of Administration to learn more about applying for a DEM grant for remedial and economic development of the landfill. This is really a work in progress at this time, and according to the DOA officials, it's anywhere between a 2 to 3 year project. We also have a meeting on Wednesday morning with the abutting property owner who we spoke with before to just provide him with a direction in which we're headed. Lastly, newly proposed ordinance. It's on the agenda tonight to be scheduled. During the month of April, I worked with Deputy Zoning Official Sherry Desjardins and Solicitor Kevin McAllister to draft a newly proposed ordinance, Chapter 5.5, entitled Adoption of the State Property Code, State Property Maintenance Code for the town of Hopkinton. One of the benefits of this newly proposed ordinance is that it would allow the town to adopt the maximum allowable height of grass on property in town, something that we don't have at this time.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Question.
Yes, sure.
And Barbara, question. Is that for state maintenance, state-owned properties, or for It's for any property in Hopkinton?
It's a state law. It's under the state building code. It's a state property maintenance ordinance that adopted by many cities and towns. And it sets forth certain restrictions on many different areas, one of which is the height of grass, and that's the one we zeroed in on. Maybe Kevin would want to elaborate a little bit on that.
So it's not state property?
No.
It's
No.
It's a town ordinance.
It's
It's
a
a
town
town ordinance,
ordinance
but it's not
that
about
adopts the
town.
state property maintenance code.
Right, and they are dealing with people's property, citizens' property, not just municipal property. The ordinance has to do...
It's like enabling legislation that can be adopted by the municipal cities and towns of the state.
And it is for all properties in the town, not just municipal property.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we've adopted this a long time ago as well, and there have been changes to it.
This is like a subset
Town council.
of it's like a subset of the original.
And we did adopt it many, I think it was back in the 90s actually, so
A long time ago.
Yep.
Yes.
It's just been adapted or adopted.
There have been changes, yeah.
Take a look at those changes.
What I wanted to ask you about, Bill, is I'm hoping that one of the things you heard or will hear at one of these meetings about the landfill is that the older part that we need to work on, and you know, the neighbor let us use their land way back. The older part never had an issue of criminality. There was never any witness or any evidence that illegal things went into that old part. There was a question on the newer one, and that's why, because there were problems with the gatekeeper, in a sense, allowing things to go in the dump at night that shouldn't have. So DEM, as well as the town, was concerned about what was really in that newer section, and that's why DEM made us cover it with this membrane and then have the monitoring wells continue. So, and back then, and this is 30 years ago, we paid just over 1.7 million to close that newer section. So I'm hoping that they're able to engineer and look at the older section and find out that it's just routine household items. And so it may have been a burn dump too, I don't know. So I'm hoping that that's what ends up. I hope they don't try to make us cover that older section that way. So we'll see. Right. I just wanted to let you know those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Next item under old business, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to grant request of Robert Craven Esquire to reschedule the May 28, 2019 public hearing date regarding an amendment to the Hopkinton zoning ordinance and the Hopkinton comprehensive plan and future land use map filed by Atlantic Solar LLC, 260 West Exchange Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, and Atlantic Control Systems, Inc., 318 Dry Bridge Road, North Kingstown, Rhode Island, 02903. Landowner for property located at 0 Main Street, identified as Plat 7, Lot 32, Plat 10, Lot 87, and Plat 11, Lot 35, in RFR 80 zone. This matter was continued from April 15, 2019 to May 28, 2019, as was announced during the advertised and noticed April 15, 2019 Town Council meeting. Yes, we need to please something.
Right. And I believe because there's been a continuance and this has to be advertised, a butter notice sent again. So I'm thinking that, I'm trying to predict the future, but it seems that Monday's a good time for council and for Street Raven. So I know that I'm not sure how far into the future we're going to go, but it looks like we're going to be probably into June.
Maybe June 10th?
June 10th.
Yeah, second June 10th. Yeah. So we'll go with that one.
And this was a request from the lawyer because he's unavailable that particular night.
Right, he chairs the committee. Middle School.
I know in my own thing that really concerns me, and something should be said, we have numerous solar proposals in town. We have a lot of other projects in town. And you would think that, especially the bigger project, they would have somebody from that law firm cover them, because it's inconvenience to a lot of people who set aside that night, whether it's the abutters or anybody else, say, that's tonight, I usually work that night, and I'm taking it off to go to that meeting because I'm an abutter or an organization or some other event. And the inconvenience is not only the people involved, but also anybody they work with, whether it's a place of work or an organization or somebody they have to cover for them to go to that meeting. So I would hope that at least some of these lawyers take into consideration having a law partner cover them, so that not only the council is inconvenienced, but everybody else that deals with an applicant, any of their abutters and everybody else, because they have a life too, and they have responsibilities and schedules that have to be changed too. Thank you.
I'll move that we grant the request of Robert Craven Esquire to reschedule the May 28th public hearing date, reference the amendment to the Hopkinton zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan future land use map by Atlantic Solar LLC to June 10th.
Second. Okay, motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Next, number 2, under old business, ongoing financial reporting requirements regarding Ashaway ambulance. Update on cost of the same from Ashaway ambulance treasurer Eric Herron.
Good evening, Eric Curran, treasurer of Ashaway ambulance. I'm here tonight to hopefully move past the precedents that was set forth over a year ago now. Our monthly costs for payroll and budgeting and everything actually just went up about $75 a month. The reporting that's sent to the town council costs the units for about $50 a month at that. In an effort to save money, I'm asking that we no longer have to provide documentation on a monthly basis. That said, financial reporting, documentation for runs, and those for public health. The town has no say in those items actually for a town charter. So I'm asking to move past the past and move into the future.
All right, so they weren't monthly, I think they were quarterly.
Anyways, it cost me about $50 a month,
Yeah.
so the math.
So you're asking for us to, the conditions we placed on you folks way back when.
So we met them, we met those conditions.
Once.
So we met the conditions for a year. We resolved any issues, whatever those may have been. And I think it's just something to just move past this.
Okay, fair.
Maybe we can do a 6-month, just in the middle of the year. How about that?
It's still going to cost, the ambulance goes the same amount of money. It still costs me $50 a month.
It's one time, yeah.
No, it's still going to cost me, because those documents have to be done every month. So it's still going to cost me $600 a year.
So don't you have to do it at the end of the year? Because you're.
Well, we have to do a budget. We have to present you folks with a budget every year.
Right.
So that's done annually.
And wouldn't you need the information?
Right, but to have it sent to you folks, it costs me an extra $50 every month to have that documentation done.
But don't you need it at the end of the year?
Yes, I do.
Right, so.
But it's costing me more, it's costing me extra to have it done, to send to the town council.
But are you sending it to the town manager once a month?
There was a hiccup, and I thought it was being sent, and it wasn't. I was not made aware of that, and I didn't know about it until late. My point is that we have to provide you with all the financials every year to even get a grant request. Beyond that, I'd just like to kind of move past what's happened in the past. I was not involved in what happened beforehand. I came on as treasurer, and we resolved all of these issues, and I think it's just time to move forward. I'm trying to save money because we just got hit with another state legislation, Department of Health, where I have to train my drivers to become EMRs now. It's gonna cost me $300 or $400 per guy.
What's an EMR?
Emergency medical responder. So it's.
Is that what you call everybody that's in the
No.
back? I thought it was EMTs.
No. So an EMR is
That-
they're a cross between a driver and an EMT.
Responder.
So they're not licensed EMTs, but they know, first aid, CPR. So it's like an advanced driver and not quite an EMT. But I just put in for a legislative grant that I'm hoping to cover 5 or 6 guys with. So saving $50 a month, I can maybe train another couple of guys up. Unfortunately, costs keep going up. We have to keep buying medication, we have to keep buying all of these things, and it costs money. So as treasurer, I have to try to save every penny I can so we can afford these things, because these are unfunded mandates. I can't not do this. The state says we're going to do this.
Let me ask you a question. At the end of the year, what happens with the finances? Whoever you're paying looks over the 12 months because they need to know what your expenses are. And they need to know what your revenue is.
Well, let's look at every.
So they're going to do that at the end of the year.
Right.
So I don't see why that person couldn't look at it at 6 months. And then when you do your year one, she's already done 6 months. So you just have the last 6 months to look at.
I have it done every month. Our financials are done by now, say agency. The fees just went up. Matter of fact, I've got to sign documentation tomorrow because I couldn't be at our own meeting tonight. Because we have to bring up, again, the body decides on that. But it's expensive. I mean, payroll, just payroll.
Am I missing something?
I think what she's trying to find out is that
Not really.
if you have to pay it anyway.
This is an additional fee on top of what I have to pay.
What is the additional fee?
$50 a month.
So that's $600 a year.
Exactly.
Is an additional fee
Right.
for her to gather things up in order to send it to the town. And the only problem that the town has is they've only received it once. So for the $600, she sent it one time instead of 3 or 4 times.
Right, I understand that. And that was an oversight that I didn't know existed.
Can she go back and either refund you because she didn't send when she should?
No, this is a fee going forward. This is a fee going forward. So this a new fee set. So this is going forward, not in the past. This is from like next month going forward.
And so the 50 is because she has to send it quarterly, which she hasn't done. But if she says...
No, you've received the first 2 quarters of this year already.
Yeah.
The first 2 months.
Sent them to the
2
town.
months, yeah. She said she sent February, March, it's already.
I don't know that. I don't know whether the town...
I saw her today.
Well, yeah, in any event, the organization was supposed to send stuff in after the last time we had it on the agenda. I think Eric corrected it, sent it to Bill. It was pretty late, but it was received. Eric, he called me, wanted me to put this on the agenda so that we could talk about, I guess, the ongoing reporting and whether we would relax, I guess, our standards or guidelines that we set forth a year ago. That's basically what he wants us to talk about. So,
I think it makes sense to continue it to June 30th, because that takes care of an entire year. July 1st is another point. If everything can be, I think it's acceptable to try to see that by June 30th, everything's been sent in consistently and what you need, because it hasn't been done before. It hasn't been complete. So can you accomplish that?
Should be it. Like I said, the only thing that...
But remember that there are at least 3 things that I didn't know they remembered. The finances were one.
Right.
But the...
the runs, the monthly runs.
Right, the monthly runs and the personnel, that young gentleman who was keeping track of it.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
That's
that
just
all
runs.
needs to go to Bill.
Right.
Because it was asked for quarterly.
Right.
Can they accomplish that?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
You know,
Again, I'm trying to move past
it's just
this.
that nothing is...
well, I think we have, it's just that I understand.
I don't feel that way.
Well, yeah.
I think we've got some charter issues that we need to resolve, and what I'd like to see is the town council came forth and said, we're trying to help you. So I think in that vein, that we need to look as a town to what we're gonna do moving forward. Are we gonna make a charter change? Are we violating our charter as we speak right now, which we are in a couple of areas? So how do we fix that? How do we move past that? How do we get, what happens when an ambulance corps in this town runs out of money? Have we talked about that? Have we got a plan? And I'd be willing to sit down at a meeting, over coffee, doesn't matter, to discuss these things. I've said this for a long time. ASHRAE is set up for the fire district to take over EMS. It's in their charter. The whole town as a whole is not. So I think this is what we... I think this is what we need to... We need to look at this as a whole.
Okay, I just have one question, Eric. How much contact do you have as treasurer with the people, cashing the checks and that? I mean, do you talk to them once a month?
Cashing what checks?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about any of the person.
We don't cash checks, yeah.
I mean, the person that's handling the finances for
The bookkeeper.
the bookkeeper.
How often? As often as I need to. Once a week, sometimes more.
I'm just curious, that's all.
For what purpose? Are you curious?
No, I just want to know,
What
I just want to know how much,
purpose are you curious about?
I was just curious how much contact you had with the person you hired to.
Phone, email, their office is right down the street from where I work. So I'm there usually once a week. If there's something else going on, they handle our mail, they handle all of our deposits, they handle all of our billing, they do all the bills for the month.
No, I mean, it was just, the situation where obviously the town council, the town did not get the reports and things of that nature. It's just logical, you'd be curious how often you talk to these people. I mean,
Yeah, like I said, at least once a week.
Yeah, okay, and that, I wasn't trying to be wise or anything, but
But
it's
then
a fair question.
then what we need to do is get the reports, because you need to tell them, they need to get them to Tom McGarry.
Again, and I'm not sure what happened there. It was an email glitch or whatever happened. I was not aware of it until, obviously, I was made aware of it.
Right, well, we talked about it at the planning, we
Right,
talked about it in the budget. That information needs to get in. And so if you can talk to the people you have and have them get it in to Mr. McGarry, like now, like.
Like I said, when I saw her
don't wait
today,
for the quarter.
she said she had sent February, March's reports. So I'll have to.
Yeah, and they'll just have to check, but I meant the other two reports too. Those need to be in.
Well, the other report is if personnel leave, which we haven't had any change there. I explained
Right,
it.
but it needs to go in as there have been no changes, but the report has to get in. So if those can at least get in so that Mr. McGarry can have them and see them, and if it's consistent, if it seems to be making sense, then maybe we can address this again, just in another month or so. But you need to get that in now, because those things I know have not come in, and I know it's not your fault, but those people that are responsible have to get them over to him.
Well, so I guess my point is why does the town council need to know how many runs we've done? And we go back to the same thing. What are you using the information for? I guess, what is the end game?
Well, I think Barbara's talking about the financials.
I presented a budget, I presented our financials, I presented our tax return from last year.
And then the ongoing reporting.
Right. But are we talking about just the financials, or are we talking about runs every month, or are we talking about,
I think,
you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, no, I understand, yeah, the non-financial documents are not difficult to see. I would recommend, it's up to the town council, but I would recommend them submit them every 6 months. They have to submit them in January anyway, the financials for the budgetary process.
Right.
To get their money. And then they should submit them probably 30 days after June 30th.
Right.
At the end of the fiscal year.
Right, and I think actually,
That would be my recommendation.
just to say, one of the reasons that we wanted them is that we found for several years in a row, every time you talk to someone, they change the next year, they change. and then no one knew what was in the past. So what we're trying to see is that there is a consistency in personnel and the way the organizations run, because we give you a substantial amount of money, which, as far as I'm concerned, the ambulances do deserve, but we had people changing every time, and every time you saw someone, they didn't know anything about the past year.
I don't
And it
disagree with
happened
that.
year after year after year.
But I can't control what
No,
happens in the
I
past.
know. But so what we're trying to do is see that there is consistency in the personnel and the
But
finance.
I don't think that's where this whole thing started. It wasn't consistency in personnel. There was something more to that. And that's why I'm trying to get past,
I
the
think we have.
stigma.
Yeah, I think we have. Let's focus on what was required of you, what you did and didn't do, and then, because it's a lot of money, it's 50 grand. So I guess I agree with Bill, maybe, 6 months, once every 6 months, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Does that seem?
So financials every 6 months.
And
So really, it's just one more time, because you have to submit in January.
then it may not continue, it might be just,
Right, just
you
one
might
more.
next year say, we've seen enough, you're fine, we don't need it anymore. But what the manager is suggesting is that as of July 1st, that you have 30 days and you could get that into us.
So it's cutting the requirements in half.
Yeah, and then we'd see you in January, and at that time, we would say, hey, maybe this is enough. We don't need to keep it. And the concern was actually back then, I think the major concern, I know it was my concern and others, that the ambulance was going to fail. And that's where we were very worried about, and that hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't happened, but cutting funding back then without telling us was not how you help someone that you
Well,
think
that's the
failed.
past, and that's not how it happened.
Yeah,
That's not how it happened.
Anyway,
let's just move on here.
I think we need to look at, and I really strongly believe that we need to look at the charter overall and make sure we're following our charter.
Or change it if it's not working now. But what was written before, even a charter can be opened, and if it is not functioning in today's 21st century, change the charter. It's the same thing that we fight about with the school, with its charter. At some point, you may have to open it and change it.
It's time.
And that might be what the issue is. Because it's the 21st century, things are happening very differently. You're getting mandates from the state very differently than you ever did. You're getting equal opportunity things in healthcare that is just going to blast you right out of the water.
Well, it already is.
Right, so it's a new century, change the charter to make it work. So, like Sylvia says, we want you to continue, we don't want you to fail. And that's what we're concerned on. Because our ambulance, both sides, both Hope Valley and
Well,
Ashway is
so-
volunteer.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Frank, can I make a comment? I'll do it during public forum.
All right, first item on the new business. Bill, which one did you actually have that in? 1, 4, 6? Okay. Bill made an amendment to the motions on numbers 1, 4, and 6. But first up is number 1, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for diesel fuel to Ginger's Service Station, Westerly, Rhode Island, the low bidder, with a total fixed added price of 39 cents per gallon from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 2, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for number 2 fuel to Ginger's Service Station of Westerly, Rhode Island, the low bidder, for the fixed added price of 6 cents per gallon from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Which one did you just do?
Number 2. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 3, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for the purchase of winter sand from Rawson Materials of Putnam, Connecticut, sole bidder for a price of $13 per ton, picked up $15.70 per ton delivered from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 4, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for the purchase of mid-grade gasoline from Petro of Warwick, Rhode Island, at the low bidder, for the total fixed added price of 45 cents 45.5 per gallon from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Motion made, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 5, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for the purchase of heating oil and cooling system maintenance services of Petro of Warwick, Rhode Island, the sole qualified bidder for $105 per hour on Mondays through Fridays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and $125 an hour on Mondays through Fridays from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m., including Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, and a 10% discount from the parts list from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
And second, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 6, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award a bid for the purchase of propane gas heating fuel to Quality Propane of North Stonington, Connecticut, a low bidder, for a total fixed annual price of 30 cents per gallon. This bid also includes burner service in the amount of $95 per hour, Mondays through Fridays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., $125 per hour from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m., including Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, less a 15% discount from the parts list from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 7, discuss and consider setting May 20th, 2019 as a hearing date for a proposed new ordinance entitled Chapter 5.5, Adoption of the State Property Maintenance Code for the Town of Hopkinton. Is that May 20th okay for everyone? Yes, sir.
Can I ask that maybe the conversations be kept to a minimum, like, I'm not a tough time hearing?
She's got to write the notes down here, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks. You guys will...
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
This is for the May 20th?
Yeah.
Oh, it just didn't say vote, so I...
No, it says hearing date.
Yeah, I know.
Setting hearing date.
I know, but I would just...
On consensus.
Usually we get the lawyer to say, hey, it's not on, it doesn't say vote. And then you go,
Well, setting the date.
Just setting the date.
Just a... Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Good, okay, solves that.
Yeah, that's...
I thought we consider setting that date up, so we go on setting the date.
Yeah.
We just agree to it, we just agree to it.
That sounds good. Number 8, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to award the sale of 3 used police vehicles to the highest bidder as follows. The sale of the 1991 Hummer to Westerly Auto Sales in the amount of $10,200. The sale of the 1987 Hummer to Paul Renatato in the amount
Oh,
of
that's a tough one.
in the amount of $11,000. And finally, the sale of the 2006 Nissan Altima to Wyoming Towing in the amount of $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Number 9, we took care of early on. Boards and commissions, number 1, discuss, consider, and vote to reappoint Michael Brocato to the Tax Review Board.
So moved. He's been there since the 90s, and we appreciate it. Yeah.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 2, discuss, consider, and vote to reappoint Thomas Holberton to the planning board.
So,
There's a motion to second. Okay. What do we want to do with Mr. Holberton? Ladies?
There's no second. It's a nominee, it's a new.
I move that we not reappoint Thomas Holberton to the planning board.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'd like to know what the reason is. Thomas Holberg graduated from Carroll Class of 74. I know he's a very outspoken guy. He's always been that way, and he will always be that way. But he's a former council candidate. He grew up in town, Carroll graduate, and I would probably vote for his reappointment. I know of no reason not to appoint him. In all indications, he's been a good member of the planning board.
I will say that the reason I even brought that motion to the floor is because of residents who contact us and then say, make sure you look at a certain video. You want people on boards and commissions that represent your town that are thoughtful and not rude and not aggressive. And I was concerned about the appointment way back, and unfortunately, there are videos, I'll have to let you know what the dates are, but there's a video very clearly where he's just not representing the town the way we like. So it's got nothing to do with votes, it's just his manner and his behavior, that's the problem.
I also, I like Tom Holberton a lot, and you always know where Tom Holberton stands, and I like the fact that he's intense and passionate, but solar is very divisive, it is very frustrating. I have been at the town planning board meetings consistently for the last several years, and when solar comes up, it is brought up by developers by right, whether people like it or not, or want it to be there or not. And they need to be handled and talked to in a professional and calm and respectful manner. And it is not happening on the planning board for the last year. It is, Tom Holberton certainly is always passionate and intense. Other members of the planning board are as well. But it needs to be done in a more civil manner. It is an embarrassment to the town because it is not professional, not respectful, and not civil. And that is why. And I adore Tom Holberton. But we need some civility.
I will speak to Mr. Holberton. I've known he's a few years behind me in high school, and I will talk to him directly. I will talk to some other people, and I will try to review the videos in question. But I think he has served this town many times. He put his name forward as a candidate for town council. He wasn't successful, but he took that initiative. And Tom is, I guess, doesn't self-oppose easily or whatever. I don't know if that's a good terminology, but Tom can be a tough guy. You know, the way he talks. I don't go to planning board meetings. I have a Masonic organization which I'm an officer of on the first Wednesday when they meet. But I will review the videos in question. Just let me know, and I will also talk to a few people here. Okay?
Yeah, I've been at planning board meetings, no disrespect to Al, he's in the audience, but he is just over the top, disrespectful to abutters, to applicants, witnesses, everyone involved, and it's just, as Sylvia mentioned, there's no place in town government as far as I'm concerned. You can be passionate, but you need to be respectful, and I don't think he has any of that. So I personally witnessed what's happened, and I don't particularly care for that behavior. So that's that. But then I've seen videos, and I've also seen them in person, so it's just not something I think that the town needs to have. So anyway, that's that. Next, number 3, discuss, consider.
Oh, we didn't go through all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good.
What's the
Councilor Thompson made a motion, and seconded by Councilor Calvo, not to reappoint Mr. Holberton to the planning board.
So motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Number 3, discuss, consider, and possibly vote on an appointment of Steve Wheel to the planning board as an alternate. Yes, Lisa.
Mr. Wheel approached me prior to the council meeting convening and indicated to me verbally that he would be withdrawing his interest on being appointed to the planning board, and he will be submitting something in there.
Oh, you didn't get into why? No.
Personal reasons.
Okay.
Well, that's easy enough. Okay. Next, number 4, discuss, consider, and vote to appoint one of 3 applicants, Michael Warner, Elaine Calderon, Eric Bidler, to the Wild and Scenic River Stewardship Council as a full member.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Elaine Calderon as the full member.
Thank you very much. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Well, I was going to make the motion, but
I just want to make sure people know why. Because we had 3 very good candidates. In reference to Elaine, she was well, she was, and that has now retired, as a marine biologist. She's an avid kayaker, 34-year resident of Ashway. She enjoys her kayak in our rivers. But the fact that she has been working as a marine biologist for her lifetime, she comes to the top of the list.
And also what I really liked is I'm very interested in the wild and scenic rivers being available to children, the elderly, and the disabled, and she has a great deal of experience with that, so I'm looking forward to the wild and scenic rivers being able to be accessible to people that have a little more trouble getting to the river. So I was very pleased with her. I thought she was wonderful.
And a neighbor of our friend.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, the thing is, I was hoping to make the motion because I've been next door to her for decades, so I know her real well. I know her late husband, Dr. Bill William T, and he is a great choice, and that's all I can say.
Lisa, motion was made and seconded, right?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 5, discuss, consider, and vote to appoint one of the 3 applicants, Mike Warner, Elaine Calderon.
No, 4. Number 4.
No,
No,
5,
five.
Scott, we just did the full number.
We skipped over one.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yes, okay. Discuss, consider, and vote to appoint one of the 3 applicants, Michael Warner, Elaine Calderon, Eric Biblet, to the Wild and Scenic River Stewardship Council as an alternate member.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Michael Warner as the alternate member.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes.
With all due respect to Mr. Warner, I support Eric Bibler for this appointment. I will be voting no. No offense to Mr. Warner, but I support Eric Bibler for this appointment. Thank you.
Okay. Second.
The reason I support Michael Warner is because of his past. He is, well, in his current too. He's a board member and has been for 9 years of the Rhode Island Saltwater Anglers Association. He's the chairman of the foundation, this Anglers Association. He has worked past and over the last 10 years on legislative, I'm not sure how to word it, but legislative action that would assist in his Angler Association. But in addition to that, he's, of course, this is just his personal information, for instance, being a 30-year military veteran. But he's a volunteer in the Hopkinton, or has been in the Hopkinton baseball and basketball. He was a coach. He has been very active in the passage and trout passage, not trout, salmon, and dam removal along our rivers. And I guess that's, I mean, I was trying to read all this in here, but he is qualified. And even Eric Bibler, which I agree, I would like very much to see him active in our commissions or committees, because Eric Bibler does know how to get things done. And when he believes in something, he follows through on it with his actions and deeds. So Eric Bibler is a good choice. It's just that these other 2 had environmental experience throughout their life. And I know Eric has too, and he even said to us that he wasn't going to be offended, I'm not sure it's exactly the language, if we appointed these other 2. So
the gentleman is really wonderful too, because he's been a part of town, he's been a part of all of the fishing and the angling, the saltwater, all the things that are not just recreational, but for us it's economic development.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded for the alternate member. No further discussion. All those in favor of Mike Warner?
Aye.
Aye. Not in favor? No. Okay.
I wanted to let you know that the Woodcock Tuck Watershed Association called.
Yes.
And they wanted to let me know to extend to the applicants and anybody else that they have decided that their first meeting is going to be on May 22nd at their headquarters, 6 p.m. And they're going to be meeting the 4th Wednesday of each month.
Okay, you can let these folks know.
can you let Eric Bibler know as well? Because he may want to go just as a person from the audience.
I think it has to get things that was at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's that. All right. Last public forum.
I want to thank Bill and others that have worked on this Stuff Town Road dump. I know it's a lot of work, and I certainly appreciate that. The other thing I want to mention is about Palmer Circle. And I know Palmer Circle was either commercial or manufacturing commercial. And maybe it's something that probably we just overlooked. But I don't know what guidelines are imposed for a piece of manufacturing or commercial. If it's similar to what we do for residential to commercial, because if they're just going to go in and do what they did to Palmer Circle without any restrictions or guidelines, I just think that maybe that's something we need to look at.
Yeah, Rosemary talked to Jim, and they've got a game plan going forward.
But the third point I just want to mention real quick, myself and Luther went to all the budgeting meetings, and I've been in business all my life, and I believe it was a simple request by the town manager to get information from the Ambulance Association. The same thing I heard at those budgeting meetings I heard tonight. I didn't know about the issues, and that's why it happened. I don't think it's unrealistic to request certain guidelines to be followed. The town council, the residents, from the budget, put $50,000 into that. The town council should be able to ask questions when you put that kind of money into a project. We've done it for everyone else that showed up at these budgeting hearings, and it just seems like, I know Eric is new at this position, so, but I believe that there needs to be stronger guidelines, and that the requests need to be taken care of in a timely fashion. The last thing I want to mention is that I've been to a majority of the town planning meetings this past year. I'll say there are some residents and there are some town council members that have been disrespectful to people. For an example, this May planning board meeting on Tuesday, I don't know what time Tuesday, but on Tuesday, a 44-page email was submitted, and that had to be reviewed prior to a Wednesday hearing, or a planning board meeting on Wednesday. So the chair had to mention it, and I agree, that information should have been presented on a more timely basis. So that there are times when people on that planning board need to step forward. And Tom may get excited, but his heart, I believe, is in the right area. I've only seen him ask for reasonable requests. I don't see him to, and I'm not sure of the video in particular, but I haven't seen him to be any more disrespectful than myself, members of the town council meeting members. And it's just disappointing. That's all I want to say.
Okay. Get a motion to adjourn?
No, I wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I actually wanted to speak in the first open forum, and that kind of just got shut down very quickly. And I wanted to speak on behalf of Tom Holford, because I have been going to the planning board meetings as well. And this vote just feels very much motivated politically by Solar. I think he handles himself well, he cares about the town, he's diligent and dedicated, and I'm very disappointed.
I wasn't going to say anything about Tom Holbert, but since a few other people have brought it up, I would also like to say that my background is in human resources, okay? So if you have a problem with somebody, did anybody talk to them about it? Has anybody said anything out about it? I just find it, that's very disturbing to me, that if you guys have had a problem with his behavior, that he was not made aware of it prior to, and the way you're going to deal with it is to not reappoint him. So I'll just make that comment. The other thing I wanted to sort of reiterate was my concern about what was going on at Palmer Circle. I'm hoping that that is under control somewhat, because, you know, I don't really want to get into an argument, a fight with anybody. We all have our opinions. But I'm looking at these developments, solar developments that are going in, and they, everything about them. And it's gonna be, I'm gonna be dead before the trees and the shrubs grow enough to not see them. And you know what, that's okay for me because right now, I'm fortunate, maybe I don't have one right next to me, but there could be one down the road for me, who knows? It could be right next door to me. I just find the fact that we're approving these things and then we're going after they start doing their work and having to fix what's going on. So that's my thing about the solar thing. I also wanted to bring up, I believe it was at the last town council meeting where we were listening to public comment on the solar proposal. And Mr. McAllister seemed to say pretty clearly that in his opinion, the new ordinance does not apply to people who have submitted their proposal prior to the enactment of the ordinance. And it seems pretty clear that there are people who have a different opinion about that. I know that there are some people on the council who are in favor of these developments. There are some people who are not. And I just think that it would be a really good thing if we could get an outside opinion on it. There have been 2 recent decisions that would support the position that the new ordinance is what prevails. And Mr. Donnelly has done a lot of work and provided a lot of information to support that. And I think it would be much more transparent for the whole process and help people get past this. I mean, I feel like I've been coming to these meetings since last July. And you know what? It's not really what I want to be doing every single Monday night. And I think you guys have a lot of really important work to do in this town. And if we could get an answer to this that was more definitive, I think that would be really helpful for everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Might be a veteran.
Yes, sir. Combat.
Combat. Sorry. My bad.
Again, John Downey, 1 Jupiter Drive. I just want to give you a little background on the Ashley ambulance deal. I was president back in the 80s for 2 years, and we were all volunteer, nobody got a dime, and we all made all the calls. We had a special little group, and that happens all the time. You lose people, and you have a hard time getting volunteers. The paid crews during the day is working for them, but they got to pay for them. But they don't get paid half of what Wesley pays their employees down there. And again, they rely on volunteers. Even last week, I have a radio for them, fire policemen also. And actually went to Hope Valley for mutual aid. That's why they have mutual aid. And I just want to let you know that, like Eric is new on here, they change people so often, and nothing gets told what they've been doing. And when I was there, we didn't have any reports or anything. It was just, here, here's a budget, town council approved it. So, but we didn't ask for nothing we didn't need, and I don't think, knowing them guys up there, still friends with them, I can't do the job, but they're not asking for anything more than what they really need, because the fire district gave them $50,000 last year, and I hope we don't have to do that again. But the only thing is, they didn't send out subscriptions, so everybody in town was covered. So you get there, they bill the insurance company gives them money, fine. They don't give me money, okay, no problem. Town residents don't have to pay. So just want to give you a little background, because it's really tough to get volunteers. It's expensive to train these guys, and now, when my day, anybody can drive an ambulance. You pick up somebody on the road, say, hey, drive me to the hospital with this guy, you can do it. Now he's saying, you got to certify them, there's EMP licenses. They really, I was a cardiac, and I spent over $1,000 going to school myself to get that. And no money. I did it because I enjoyed doing it. And there's a lot of guys up there that still do. And who knows how long Eric's gonna be there? He might get fed up, somebody else has got to take over. When Judy Spadaro had it, we had problems. Well, we took care of it, but I just want to let you know, they're doing a great job at AP, and they're not asking for arm and a leg, so I pay taxes too. So, okay.
Can I have a second chance, or am I?
Yeah, no,
You're gonna hold my coffee.
Okay. So I did want to say one more thing that I was reminded of when I sat down, and it has to do with this I don't know, ordinance that we're going to consider on May 20th about adopting the state maintenance, blah, blah, blah. I noticed in there that there is a limit on how tall your grass can be. And, you know, I live on the old Carter Woodville Road. Nobody can see my house from the road. What happens if I go away on vacation? I go visit my mother for a month and a half? Like, that worries me. But the thing that bugs me more about it is the fact that we sat here tonight and the town council approved a resolution to support our Second Amendment rights, but now we're going to consider telling people that they have to keep their lawn mower at 10 inches. And I find that a little problematic. Okay?
By the way, yours is 11 inches.
Oh. Thanks, Joe. That was you out there that the dogs were barking at.
Yes,
Yeah, I stood here, so I think I can only justify a couple of 2 cents of mine. I guess I'm jealous of all the yellow shirts that were here. If you guys, or I suppose the solar folks that are either proponents, of which I am, a proponent of solar, but in the right places, could get together and compassionately plead their case to you, and you guys responded with the same zeal that happened for the guns rights folks as you would for the solar proponents and solar and town, I guess the town, the rural town folks that would like to keep it rural, would respond to them as well as you did to the yellow shirt folks. I'd really be pleased. I mentioned that to you. I think we need to get t-shirts. Yeah, I think we need t-shirts as part of it.
Just don't get yellow.
Don't. I'm speaking maybe yellow in order, then maybe you would get confused.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know about that.
But more seriously, I posed some questions about, especially the Skunk Hill Lisa Lane proposal last time about consistency. The arguments for the Skunk Hill proposal are basically the same as the Brushy Hill proposal. It's the same kind of an area. It actually is more densely populated with residential ownership around it. And yet you disapproved the Brushy Brook proposal. I don't see how you could not disapprove the Skunk Hill lease line for basically the same reasons. The other thing I had thought about, and I just talked to Al Diorio a little bit, you guys brought it up tonight about the old Stubbtown Road landfill. And it seems to me, and I posed the question to you, is what can we do about various commercial properties or town-owned properties in lieu of trying to rezone some of these residential areas to commercial so that you can populate them with solar panels. The landfill seems like a perfect opportunity to demonstrate that. Have you folks, are you folks pursuing that as an option?
Yes.
And I
Without
started
getting too
that
much.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much, because I don't know too much about it.
But yeah, Bill and Joe and Sylvia and
The planning board,
Yeah,
I think they're all on,
yeah.
okay, great. That encourages me, but what I'm hoping that you'll agree to is the second part of that statement. That was in lieu of accepting or approving some of these other very large, I think, massive and just grossly massive installations that don't belong here. Consider that to be a better option. other alternatives would be welcome. And the other thing I wanted to say is that gentleman, I don't know his name, but he was at the last meeting. He's typically, I know he's a large landowner, he would like to put solar on his property. Said he was an engineer, and he was, I guess I was surprised and very happy that one of his comments, or one of his ending comments was that he was in favor of alternatives as well, and hoping that you folks would entertain other alternatives. Yet he's a proponent for chopping down all the trees and putting panels up there. So please open your minds. Think of Brushy Brook and how it needs to be consistent in your decision making in the future. I'd be very happy if you would do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn in memory of Sandra White Warnier, who is the mother of former town council member Tom Spock. Sandra White, hyphen Warnier. I believe that's correct. That's 9 o'clock. I went to the wake and
Second for that motion? Second. Okay, motion made second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Good night, everyone.